A thief stealing corporate secrets by hacking somebody's dreams? This is everything I missed. Welcome back, you guys. This is episode 2 of Everything I Missed, my YouTube video, whatever series, all about me rating and reviewing some of the best films of all time, I guess, supposedly, that I may have missed, all from throughout film history. So we're talking 2024 and back. 2024 and back. And this week, we are talking about Inception. Ooh. It feels very like woo to me. But yeah, that's what we're talking about this week. I'm so excited. I'm excited because I kind of got my microphone to work again. And of course, yeah, I got my notes. So I'm not going to try to be as long-winded as last week. No trailers this week, only because I did not spend time on social media. I guess I could have Googled if there are any trailers to watch. And also getting access, trying to, I don't know how people are filming when they edit and watch. I mean, not edit, but watching the trailers and then put that in the video. It took me so much to do that editing wise and figuring that out. So I got to do some more homework on that. But I will keep watching trailers. I just don't know how I'm going to be able to incorporate the video of me watching them in our series, because how did it not get flagged? I'm trying to figure that out. But anyway, trailers will come back maybe next week or the week after that, and then we'll be good. But yes, we're just going to hop right into it. So this week we watched, or am watching, I don't know if you've seen or will watch, Inception. I'm going to premise this and say I did not even know or realize this was written and directed by Christopher Nolan. I had no idea. And it's like, oh my gosh, how could you be so clueless to that? But like I said, this is everything I missed. So obviously I missed that. I do remember when this film came out, and I kind of remember watching with my parents. I think we did end up getting this movie on DVD, because we used to buy DVDs all the time. But I'm telling you, rewatching it again with different eyes, I don't remember none of that. I didn't remember any of that. So yeah, without further ado, I'm gonna just get right into it for real. So this movie was released in 2010, and it is directed and written by Christopher Nolan, starring Leonardo DiCaprio, Joseph Gordon-Levitt, and Ellen, now Elliot Page. And it's also streaming on YouTube, which was, I thought, very nice and lovely surprise, because I didn't want to have to pay for this movie or go dig up the DVD. So that was good. Just a brief synopsis. We follow main character Dom Cobb on a journey to perform Inception, which is the ability to enter someone's dreams and plant an idea or thought in their mind, rather than stealing an idea or information, as he has already been doing. So he works to go in people's minds through dreams and steal information. So instead of doing that, stealing, he's trying to plant an idea, which is called Inception. So we start with him trying to steal some info from this businessman named Saito or whatever. When that fails, Saito employs him to perform Inception in order to plant an idea in his business rival's mind. The problem is, though, Inception is incredibly tricky to do, and it's kind of like a rumor thing. It seems that's the vibe that I get. Does it really happen? Does it really exist? And who can do it? Can you do it? Type vibes, right? And now that he's asking Cobb to do it, it's even more tricky, because Cobb's mind is unstable. He got a whole situation going on in there that's gonna impact his ability to do the Inception on the level that they're trying to do it, right? So his mind is unstable due to his own overindulgence in dreams I'm sharing and this concept of Inception. Cobb and his crew end up going into the business rival's mind, who is played by Killian Murphy. I think that's how you say his name, Killian Murphy. And they go like 3 levels deep. It's crazy. They're like a dream within a dream within a dream, and then within a dream. It's it's crazy. It's like, this is like right up my alley as far as films go, and as far as like stories go. I love this kind of stuff where it's like in the mind and kind of playing on that. So in dreams. In this concept though of going dream within a dream within a dream, it is incredibly dangerous, and all of it basically ends on a cliffhanger without us truly knowing whether Cobb makes it out of this dreamscape or not. So that's the full synopsis in my eyes of how I, internalized the movie, or, took stuff in. So my thoughts and questions, I only really got 3. Starting out, I will say this film for me, it was kind of hard for me to lock in with at first. And it was because it's very exposition heavy in the beginning. So for me, that was kind of taking me out of the film a little bit, but I do kind of get why it's so exposition heavy, because the concept of all these dreams within a dream, like you kind of have to lay that groundwork before you just throw people in that, I guess, like viewers. And so yeah, for me in the beginning it was just like, okay, let's just get to the point. Like we know the characters know this, and it definitely gives that vibe of they're telling us this information so that we can also know what they know. But we know it's obviously obvious that they already know. So I don't know if I'm explaining that right, but I just kind of wanted them to get to the point and like stop explaining to me what I can kind of pick up already. Like you don't have to keep saying this over and over again, essentially. So for me, things didn't really set in and pick up until they picked up, or rather employed, until Cobb employed Ariande, however you pronounce her name, the character that Elliot Page plays. That's when things like, okay, lock in. I'm like, okay, now I'm here, now I'm interested. We don't have to do all that exposition and building up and yada yada yada. But I do get why it's done. Obviously, it was the best method or choice to do things, or else Christopher Nolan wouldn't have done that when he was writing it and directing it, blah blah blah. So my second thing was this is gonna sound, I think, crazy, but I don't think the stakes of this movie was like the issue here was staking enough. I don't think it was high enough, in my opinion. I don't know, I just feel like because of the concept of it's so unique, right? Dream within a dream within a dream. And when this came out, which is why it's on that list of like best films of all time, like the film of all time, film of the decade, blah, blah, blah. It's just such a unique concept and something we've never really seen before in film. And to me, to kind of waste that on, we're going to go and mess with this business rival. Like, I don't care about that. To me, that's just like, that was beside the point. I was more interested, I think, what was going on in Cobb's mind and how he even figured out how he could do Inception. And, that was real. I was more interested in that than them trying to do this businessman plan. And that especially to me was kind of even taking a step further when Sato, the guy who they're even doing all of this for, ends up getting injured and basically potentially could die through all of this. So it's just like, okay, now it's like the business not even worth it no more, because he not even gonna get to enjoy the fruits of if the Inception work. He not gonna be able to enjoy that. So I don't know. That angle for me wasn't really working. I would have liked to see some other kind of plot playing around with that, like maybe how this dream within a dream Inception concept can impact masses as a whole, or some other thing like mind control. Like there's this theory out now that not theory, maybe, yeah, like conspiracy theory, I'll say, because I don't know if it's true or not, but I've seen online how they're saying there are being patents submitted about technology that can even enter our human minds to put ads in our minds while we sleep, while we dream. Like I've seen it. My bad for the sound. I've seen that online, but I don't know how true that is. But it do sound like something, that's interesting to explore to me as far as in a movie concept. In this realm of dream within a dream and planting ideas or thoughts in people's minds. So yeah, I don't know. I do get why that is a good idea, but at the same time, I'm like, is that enough? Is that worth everybody like risking their lives to this extent over somebody not becoming a business monopoly? I was just like, okay. Sure, whatever. Monopolies are built every day. Who cares? But yeah, that was my only two kind of like, yeah, about the film. But overall, the ending though, once we got to that part of like I said, when he hired Ariande, however you pronounce her name, it was on. From then on, from there, I was like, yeah, I was locked in. I was like, oh yeah, I'm in here. So that to me was really good. My last and final point is the ending. I have no notes. Like I said, that is kind of going along the same vein, along the same lines, but I just thought from there it was just very, very masterful, imaginative, creative, and yeah, all the action was moving and going how it needed to do. So I really appreciated that once it finally got like that first little, I would say that was like not even 25% of the film. Maybe 20, more like 15 to 20%, the first 15 to 20% of the film. Once we got past that, we were good to go, and I really enjoyed it. So yeah, ultimately, I got to do my rating. On IMDb, it was rated 8.8 out of 10. Tomatoes, Rotten Tomatoes, it was 86% fresh. All good things, all good signs. And like I said, there were many reviews. I think there were lots of Oscars and everything won for this film, and many people were saying, oh, this is film of the decade, blah blah blah, all those wonderful things. But my rating, I'm gonna give it a 4 out of 5. So I talked about my rating last week. If you haven't seen it, I'm gonna explain my rating system, which is based on, for me, the overall quality of writing and lines, acting, the emotional impact or delivery or payoff throughout and at the end, and overall story message execution throughout the whole thing. So a 4 for me is you get the hand claps. You get the hand claps. And yes, I'm saying you did that. Mr. Nolan, you did that. So yeah, a 1 star would have been like, yeah, no ma'am, no sir. 2 stars, not bad. It's alright, it's cool. 3 stars is more like, okay, I see you. You got my attention. I might watch this again. I don't know. Somebody asked me. And then, like I said, 4 stars is the hand claps saying you did that, essentially. So, do it again. And then 5 stars is yes. Obviously, the rent was due. And we love to see this. So keep it going. So that's basically how I view these things and do my ratings. So yes. Inception gets a 4 out of 5. No notes there, besides the notes I already gave. And it was great. It was wonderful. It was amazing. Definitely would watch it again quite a few times. I actually have one of my older brothers. He's really into film too. He really loves this movie, and now I see why. I never sat down and watched it with him, but now I probably would. We can deep dive and talk about it a lot more. So yeah. That's my review, guys. That's all I got for that. We're going to move on to our Doomsday Countdown. I'm so excited because, as you know, with the Doomsday Countdown, I am watching all the films and possibly a couple of shows within the Marvel Universe, counting down and leading up to the new Marvel Avengers film, Doomsday, which comes out on December 18th. There's about 40 plus movies for us to watch. If you've never watched any Marvel movies before, or you've never seen any of these 40 plus movies, I am recounting them and retelling them to you right here, right now, so that you don't have to do that. Unless you want to do it, but you don't have to. I'm going to explain it to you and let you know what happened. So last week, We already started with Captain America, X-Men Last Stand, and Captain Marvel. This week, we are doing all the X-Men movies from the early 2000s. Which is very exciting for me because growing up, I watched these movies a myriad of times. So a lot of times they were not new to me. Matter of fact, I might have watched these earlier this year, honestly, or at least the first two, because that third one, I swear I was watching that with new eyes. Like I hadn't seen that one seriously probably since childhood. But anyway, moving on to the review. Like I said, I took my notes, y'all. So I'm going to try and not be as long-winded with that because I was going on and on and on forever and, trying to find my thoughts last week. But it's going to be okay. It's going to be good. It's going to be great. So we're starting with X-Men. This came out in 2000. As you know, before with Captain Marvel, we left off last week sometime as far as time period goes in the 1990s-ish, around there. Now with X-Men, we are somewhere, no, actually we're not somewhere. I was going to say somewhere around the 1990s as well, but we are in the year 2000. It'll say like in the recent future or something like that when you watch it, if you watch it. But for this movie, it's like the year 2000. And that's actually when the film was released as well. So we have our main players for this film: Magneto, Wolverine, Rogue, Storm, Jean Grey, Cyclops, Mystique, and of course, Professor X. This film starts with Magneto and Rogue, a little backstory on them. We already know about Magneto growing up or being in a concentration camp during World War II. We get this scene again where he's separated from his mom and, it's showing that he got his magnetism powers even all the way back then. Then we go to Rogue in a more modern day. She's a young girl, probably like a teenager, I guess, probably just starting around puberty because that's when it's believed mutants, if you have the mutant gene, rather, that's when the gene will start to manifest when you hit puberty around the time you're a teenager. So homegirl is laying in the bed with some boy that she liking or whatever, and they get to kissing, and she basically puts him in a coma because her powers are is she technically like takes the powers of other mutants, but when she touches people, she has the ability to kill them or put them into a coma, but almost to the point of death. So she cannot have physical touch with people. So that's why she's always like wearing the gloves and covering her body up, et cetera, et cetera. Let me go through all their powers since we already did Rogue before I really dive deep into what happened. Wolverine, we know he has like the powers of a Wolverine, essentially, or he is a Wolverine. So he has claws that come out of between his knuckles, boom. And the claws are covered in a metal called adamantium, which we will get to when we start talking about X2. And so he has that adamantium claws. He also can self-heal, whatever. What else? So technically, he can't die. And yeah, that's pretty much the gist of Wolverine. Magneto, of course, all powers dealing with magnetism, which is kind of very cool because he can control any and everything that has metal in it, even if metal's in your body. Think about like Katara when she learned to bloodbend. Yeah, it's giving those vibes. After Magneto, Storm, she can control all the weather. So obviously that's why her name is Storm. Jean Grey, she is like Professor X, who I believe I explained last week has telekinetic powers. She's also a telekinetic, but times 10, okay? It's gonna get crazy. We're gonna get to that. But as we know it right now, Jean Grey, telekinetic powers times 10 of Professor X. So much so, she could take out a whole universe probably. Cyclops, who we're also going to see throughout this, he can shoot this laser beam out his eyes, and he can't look at anything without shooting that laser beam. So that's why he's always got the little glasses on to make sure he not blowing stuff up. And then Mystique, she's has the power of a shapeshifter, so she can change into any and everybody, down to the voice, down to the DNA print, because we see her oftentimes change into people and use their DNA essentially to get into places. So she's like the ultimate shapeshifter. Yeah. So moving on. That's everybody's powers. After we get the background on Magneto and Rogue, we then get to meet Wolverine, who is like living in Canada or whatever and fighting, doing cage fighting for money, essentially. And Rogue meets him there. And the both of them are in the car together. And all of a sudden, this whole kerfuffle, I'll say kerfuffle, happens by this other mutant named Sabretooth, who we all think is going after Wolverine, but he's actually going after Rogue. So when that happens, the X-Men pull up on them. So Storm, Cyclops, and Jean Grey pull up on them and kind of, they get rid of the Sabretooth dude, or I don't know if he's called Saber or Sabretooth. I think he's just called Sabretooth. He kind of has the powers of a Sabretooth tiger, obviously. Super strong, very tiger-like. And they take Wolverine and Rogue back to meet Professor X. I had to stop for a minute, but we're back. So I believe I was recounting Wolverine and Rogue's experience. They get taken back to the mansion, Professor X's mansion, and figures out, they get told everything that's going on. So Wolverine gets put on about who the X-Men are. Rogue finds this is a safe place and she gets enrolled into school. So now she don't have to be on the run no more, because when she ends up meeting Wolverine, she basically is like running away from home after all that happened. So she now is enrolled in school to go to Professor X's school for the gifted kids, which gifted, aka mutant. And Wolverine is now getting kind of drafted to be an X-Man. He's like, yeah, this is kind of corny, but I'm gonna stick around. Professor X kind of loops him in by saying, you want to know what happened to you, right? Because he didn't always have the adamantium on his claws and in his body. So he's like, I can help you try to remember that, but you gotta stick with me if you want to do that. So that's how he draws him in to do that, to stick with the plan, to become an X-Man or whatever. So, and also the fact that Rogue is staying there. Him and Rogue kind of get attached to one another in a sense. And I don't know, it's always strange. Like they kind of blur the line between, even though she's a teenager, like it's not romantic, but at the same time, you could tell she kind of like, how like a young girl would like an older guy, like, oh, I kind of like him, da da da. But then at the same time, it's kind of like father-daughter-ish. So I don't know. It's the lines are kind of blurred, but it's clear that they have some level of relationship and some level of care for one another, and it's like they're looking out for each other at the end of the day. Not in a creepy way though, but in a normal way. I guess in a time where you could still kind of put that on screen and it not seem weird. But yeah. So moving right along, we basically find out that the US government is trying to put into place laws that would out mutants. And Magneto is like, I'm not going for that. We already know his spiel. He's like, it's mutant or die. And Professor X is like, we can all work together and be together. Kumbaya. It's all about fellowship and love. It's okay. Everything's going to be fine. But as you know, Magneto not going for that. He's like, it's going to be a war between us. They call themselves Homo Superior, I believe, versus Homo sapiens, which is regular humans. So the government is trying to put into place this thing that would basically out mutants and force mutants to identify who has that mutant gene. Magneto is like, y'all want to do that? I'm going to show you something. I'm going to make everybody in the world mutant. And he's going to do this by using this machine to where it's going to amplify his mutantness essence and create this bubble that's going to spread everywhere. And everybody who gets caught in the bubble is going to become a mutant. He tests this out by kidnapping this senator and putting him in the bubble thing. But the thing about Magneto using his machine, by this point, he obviously was born pre-1940s, so he old. The machine is causing him to deteriorate. It's not working well with him. It's not going well. It's making him weak. But he tests this out and uses it on the senator. The senator becomes a mutant, kind of like this jelly water creature thing. And ends up escaping from Magneto after that happens, because he can get through stuff now that he's a jelly creature creation thing. So that's Magneto's whole plan to do. He then is going to try and enact this fully when the U.S. is hosting this government thing for all the world leaders on Ellis Island. So that's where we're going to see the end of the movie happening. All right, so I already talked about what the machine is going to do. Because he knows of Rogue and her powers and her abilities, this is why he was tracking down Wolverine to get to Rogue. At first, everybody thought he was looking for Wolverine. We don't know why he's looking for Wolverine. He's not really looking for Wolverine. He knows that if he can get to Wolverine, he can get to Rogue. Rogue is the goal because she can take the powers of other mutants, and she'll be okay. So in his mind, he's like, I gotta get Rogue. I'm gonna put her in this machine. I'm gonna give her my powers, and then she gonna be the one to get the machine and everything going and turn everybody mutant. But what Magneto doesn't know is that his machine is gonna kill humans, and he obviously probably don't even care about that. But when he tested it out on a senator dude, he didn't realize after the senator escaped, that man died. He finds his way to Professor Xavier's house, and they trying to treat him and help him and make him feeling better. And in the midst of all of that, he turns jelly and then turns into water and gets his nasty jelly water all over Storm. Maybe not all over, but he basically explodes while holding hands with her. And so he dead. So now it's clear and obvious that whatever he's trying to do, it's not going to go well. You're trying to force the mutant gene onto humans, and it's just not going well. So yeah, like I said, tracking down Rogue. Eventually he does get her. I'm trying to figure, because I kind of went past my point. Okay, yeah. So I'm at the right point. He kidnapped her, get her, take her to Ellis Island. By this point, the other X-Men don't really know where she is yet, or where Magneto is going to take her. So Professor X is like, oh, well, I'll get inside of Cerebro and find her. Cerebro is a machine that Charles, Professor Xavier, and Magneto built back in the day for them. I think I talked about this a little bit last week with First Class. They built it together to find and locate other mutants. So when he goes in there and tries to use this machine, Mystique snuck in the mansion a little while ago and did something to it. So now when Charles uses it, it messes up his mind, and that puts Charles down for the rest of the movie. So Charles is out. Everybody figures, they get to thinking okay, well, he must be trying to take her to such and such location, and they recognize he's trying to take her to Ellis Island. They all head to Ellis Island. Okay, so they get to Ellis Island. As you know, Magneto has his own little crew of people that ride with him. So all of them get to fighting. The X-Men get captured-ish, bondaged up or whatever, so that they can go forth with their plans. But Wolverine, he's not having that. His girl Rogue is at stake. He's like, nah, I promised the kid I would keep her safe. I'm going to keep her safe. So he basically, they have him captured kind of like this in the X position. So if he tried to pull out his claws, he would hurt himself. That's the only way for him to escape. So he ends up doing it. As you know, he can self-heal. So he heals from that, gets down, gets to Rogue. and tries to stop the machine and everything. But while he's doing it, of course, he lets everybody out. They're going back and forth. Magneto has already turned the machine on, and that big bubble thing starts to kind of spread across and towards Ellis Island and towards New York City. All the government people watching, like, what the heck going on with that? They just know it's something mutant related, and they all get up and get to running. But of course, they end up stopping it beforehand. This is also in the moment while it's happening. This is where Rogue gets her like platinum streak in her hair. That comes from this incident, as far as the movies go. And then from then on, we'll see her with that streak in her hair. But they stop the machine, and basically Wolverine saves the day. He's now officially an X-Man. You know, that solidifies his place as an X-Man. He's like, all right, I'm gonna join this crew. Of course, Professor Xavier is kind of helping him. From then on, he'll help him figure out what's going on with his mind and how he got that adamantium on his body, on his skeleton. And Rogue goes back to school. Everything is all kumbaya again, and Magneto gets locked up in a plastic prison. So that's how he ends up in jail or in prison. That's pretty much the gist of the first X-Men movie. That was our introduction in the year 2000. So yeah, I thought that was very cool, very lovely. And we're going to move on and hop right into X2. Okay, this is probably one, I think this, out of all three films, is probably the most popular one. It's definitely the one I remember the most. It was released in 2003, and also it says it takes place in a near future or whatever, but technically kind of takes place in 2003. It starts with a new character. We got Nightcrawler. He is a mutant who, he's all blue. He kind of looked like I don't know. I don't want to say like a monkey because he kind of got a tail and he has pointy ears. Like, I don't know what kind of animal to say he looks like, but of course I'm gonna put the picture on the screen. But yeah, Nightcrawler can appear here and reappear there. Appear, reappear, like that. And he's blue like Mystique. So yeah, he is attacking the White House. And because he attacks the White House and attacks the president, this allows this guy named William Stryker to get permission from the president to hunt down mutants. Okay, we should know that Stryker, even though that's what he wants to do, like eradicate all the mutants, he also got other stuff going and, you know, reasons why he want to do this. He's been experimenting on mutant abilities for a long time. We're going to see more of Stryker as we continue to watch and find out more from the X-Men movies. But this is our first introduction to William Stryker. So once the whole thing with Nightcrawler happens and it's kind of shown like, oh yeah, these mutants are dangerous, he gets permission from the president to go forth and hunt down mutants. How is he going to do this? I have here, Stryker has a mutant son whom he has been experimenting on to create a serum that can mind control mutants. So this is how he gets introduced to this idea of mutants and starts experimenting on them. At some point, yes, he does take his son to, his son's name is Jason. He takes Jason to Professor X's school, tries to get him help. But in his mind, he's like, I want my son cured. Like, that's how a lot of the parents be. I want my kid to get a cure, or whatever. And Professor X, he like, you know, I can't help you with that, but I can help him have a better life. And obviously Stryker ain't going for that. Jason actually has telekinetic powers just as Professor X does. And they're very strong. His mainly though leans more into like mind control and illusion, or putting illusions in people's minds. So this is how his dad, William Stryker, is able to take his brain fluid essentially and make a serum to mind control other mutants. He uses this mind control serum on Magneto because Magneto is locked up, and lo and behold, Stryker's the one that built the prison to lock up Magneto. So now he has all this, you know, he has access to him all the time. And so he visits Magneto frequently and mind controls him with that serum. And this is how he finds out about where truly Professor X's school is now, which is kind of crazy. But because he should have, I feel like he should have already knew that, but I guess thinking about it, he wouldn't have known where the school was because previously, or I guess when Professor X and Charles, no, not Charles, but Eric rather, Magneto, when they would locate new mutants, they wouldn't invite them to the school. They would always go visit them and do the like visitation, like that, kind of like Harry Potter, getting a letter or something, essentially. But anyway, moving on. So he gets the location of the building, and goes and ambushes the school while Professor X isn't there. Professor X actually is like, I'm going to go visit Magneto, which he has been doing regularly since Magneto was in prison. And we find out too that was like a double cross, a setup. So he gets kidnapped there and the school gets ambushed, and some of the kids escape, some get captured, and Wolverine, Rogue, Bobby, who was the Iceman, and Pyro all end up escaping together and going off and doing their own thing. So I should mention by this point, it's clear that Stryker, yes, wants to eliminate all mutants, but his goal isn't just to hunt them down, like what he was telling the president, and do whatever he was doing, experiment on them, whatever. He's actively building his own cerebro machine, and he wants to use that to find all the mutants in the world and put his son Jason in the machine to kill all the mutants in the world, because what Cerebro does is enhances the telekinetics power. So while you're in there, you're connected to every mind, either human or mutant, and you have the ability, if you're strong enough telekinetic, to kill or to do whatever you want to do to whoever you're trying to target. So that's Stryker's ultimate plan. He basically been pimping out his son Jason to try and eradicate all the mutants in the world. So we also learned in this movie that Stryker and Wolverine are connected. How? Stryker is the one who was experimenting on Wolverine back in the day, and that's how he got covered in adamantium, his entire skeleton. So if you were to look at Wolverine on X-ray, his skeleton would just be like silver. It's all adamantium covered, his bone. So that's why one can't really remember what's going on, because obviously Stryker messed around with his memory. He can't remember what happened to him until he injected that adamantium into his body. And that's how his claws, or I think that's what they call them, claws, got covered in the metal that we see today. So while all of this is going on, Stryker breaking into the school and everything's going down, et cetera, everybody getting kidnapped. Mystique breaks Magneto out of prison. Like, she knew he was gone, or like she didn't really know what's happened to him, but she figured out, oh, he got locked up, and Stryker the one keeping him locked up. I should mention, by this point, she's been disguising herself as that senator that Magneto tested his experiment on from the first movie. So nobody really knows that senator is dead. She been pretending and masking to be him for however long. I guess that time period, that was supposed to be in the year 2000, and this is 2003. So for like 3 years, she been pretending to be the senator. And once she find out, oh, Magneto's alive, she get to work and do what it do and help him escape. So once he is out and Professor X gets kidnapped by Stryker, taken to the base, etc., Magneto and the X-Men meet up and they basically collab. But you already know that Magneto has ulterior motives. It's kind of like a lesser of the two evils, like the enemy I know is better than the enemy I don't know type vibe going on here. But they're going to work together and try to take out Stryker. Ultimately, they get to Stryker's base. They find out where that is. That is a place called Alkali Lake. Everybody goes there. It's Rogue, it's Bobby, it's Wolverine, Storm, and Jean Grey, and of course Magneto and Mystique. It goes down at the base. Stryker's plan, of course, is working and going ahead as planned. He gets his son Jason to put an illusion in Professor X's mind, which leads them in his mind, which leads him into going into Cerebro, and he tells his son to trick Professor X into connecting his mind to all the mutants in the world in order to kill them. Okay, so eventually they dead all of that. They stop that and take it down. They get rid of that plan. And in the midst of that going down, Magneto gets to Jason and says, actually, don't take out all the mutants. Change of plans. We're going to take out all the humans. And of course, or rather, Magneto doesn't do it. Mystique does it because she transforms herself into Jason's dad, which is William Stryker. Transform into that, tricks him, and then he starts trying to take out all the humans. Of course, that plan also gets deaded because why would we take out all the humans? The X-Men are going to save the day. They free Professor X. They free all the kids. I told you some of the kids got taken by William Stryker earlier. And then in the midst of Stryker trying to escape, once everything unfolds and the plans are all foiled, whatever, blah, blah, blah. Wolverine sees him. He's like, I created you. You can't do this to me, because Wolverine's going to try and kill him, or rather lock him up to the dam where Stryker's base is, because it's under a lake. Under a lake. Going to try and lock him up there so that he can die with the base or whatever. And Wolverine is like, I'm going to pick the X-Men and the mutants over trying to know the knowledge. Just whatever. You did what you did to me at the end of the day, and it is what it is. So he lets it go. Okay. Obviously, in the midst of that, Magneto escapes. The dam breaks. Stryker ends up drowning with his base. Everything is all wonderful. All the stuff is ending. Stryker's no more. Second Cerebro is done. Blah, blah, blah. This is the part where it kind of gets a little sad. Jean is going to end up sacrificing herself, because while they're trying to escape the plane that they came on, the X-Men, when they pulled up, something happened to her where it's not working no more. And so Jean just like leaves the plane. She stops the water from the dam from trying to overtake the plane, and at the same time raises the plane up so that they could fly away. And in the midst of all of that, obviously, it uses all her might and all her power that she knows how to use. Because she always says, I have strong powers, but I don't really know how to use them. While the professor is he's still teaching me. He's still teaching me. So she doesn't even really realize the full extent of her power. But despite all of that, she's raising the plane and stopping the water. And once the plane gets in the air, the water overtakes her, and it's assumed that she is dead, which she ends up dying. That's a little tidbit from movie 3, but she ends up dying. And yeah, it's just so sad. Canonically, she is married to Scott, who is Cyclops, but she also got a little thing going with Wolverine. So everybody is toe up about her, but also Wolverine and Cyclops are real toe up about her. They all had to sit there and watch her die and basically just fly off. So it was a sad situation. And even though they saved the day, it ends with Jean Grey supposedly dying. So that is X2. I think of all 3 of the movies, this one was the best one. But yeah, moving on. Our last film for this Doomsday countdown. X-Men: The Last Stand. This is the third installation of an X-Men film we see in the early 2000s. This one is released in 2006 and is assumed to also take place in 2006. It starts with Jean Grey, her backstory. So it takes us back to her childhood, like the 1980s, with Charles and Eric, Professor X and Magneto, going to visit her home and like telling her about the school, and telling her parents rather about the school so she can come to the school. Her parents, again, like all the mutant parents usually are, like, it's just her condition. She's sick. It's a disease. Can you cure her? Blah, blah, blah. Eric ain't having that. He talking about some cure. Ain't nothing wrong with her. You know how he can get. And Professor X is like, relax. She gonna be okay. I can teach her how to better her powers, use her powers, and be in control of her powers. So, everything's gonna be all right. So we get that backstory. And ultimately, as we know, Charles ends up taking her in. She's like one of the first students. She's one of the first students that Charles ends up taking into the. And yes, I know last week we talked about the first class. They were the first, I guess, I don't know, not, more so like trainees of being X-Men, rather not the first students, because I don't think the school was established yet truly when first class had happened. So it gets a little, I think, muddy between all of that, because these first three rather, X-Men movies came out like early 2000s, and then the movies like X-Men First Class and like Apocalypse Days of Future Past come out in the later 2000s, like more recently. And I think they do a good job of trying to connect them all while trying to stay true to these first films that came out. But I think also at the same, it gets a little muddy, and you'll see a little bit more as we progress and see more X-Men movies. But yeah, so back to this though, X-Men Last Stand. So we get to future times after we get the backstory on Jean Grey. As you know, she's supposed to be dead by this time because she sacrificed herself at the Alkali Lake incident in the last movie. But the premise of this film is there is a big pharma company that has magically come out with a cure that says, oh, if you're a mutant, we can cure you. We've come out with this like a shot, and you can just get the shot and you won't be a mutant no more. It'll suppress that mutant gene and you'll be able to live a regular normal life and you'll be a normal human being. So you already know Magneto is like, I'm not going for that. This is exactly what I was talking about. They'll say you can come get this cure of your own doing, but then they'll trick you and be like, nah, the cure is required for everybody. Ain't no cure. Ain't nothing wrong with us. This is the war I was talking about. And in the same breath, Professor X and the X-Men, you know, they're kind of like, okay, a cure. That's interesting. What's this about? There's this guy named Dr. Hank McCoy, which I mentioned him last week, who is Beast. He is like a mutant who's fully out, obviously, and has been put as the head of mutant affairs in the government. So he's meeting with Professor X and the X-Men, and they're like talking about the cure and, you know, trying to weigh the pros and the cons of the cure. And Storm is just like, you know, everybody kind of thinking like, ain't no need for no cure. We're regular people. What's this about? Rogue, though, overhears all of this, and she's like, oh, a cure. I need that. I need that right now, because again, her whole thing is she wants human connection. She can't touch anybody without killing them. And you have to remember, she's young. She's a teenager. So she got that teenage like angst and horniness real bad. She has a boyfriend who is Bobby, and she wants Bobby. But her and Bobby can't do nothing, even though they've been dating for like this third movie now. They can't kiss, they can't touch, they can't do anything. So she's like, I want to do anything to be able to touch Bobby. I want to do anything to be able to touch anybody. So the thought of a cure is exciting to her. So we get to see her kind of deal with that throughout the film as well. So, like I said, we get to be introduced in this film more fully to Dr. Hank McCoy, who is the Beast. He's blue or whatever, and he is the head of mutant affairs in the government. And everything from this point on starts to pop off with Cyclops. I told you before that Cyclops is Jean Grey's husband. You know, they don't really mention that they're married, but it's obvious that they're married. Canonically, I believe they are married. But he just still ain't been right since our girl Jean been dead. So he keeps hearing her voice in his head. And in her voice, she's leading him and saying, like, come to Alkali Lake. So he goes to Alkali Lake. He just runs off from all his responsibilities and everything he's supposed to be doing at the school, which is teaching the kids and being an X-Men. He ain't going for none of that right now. His mind just still unstable. So he run off to Alkali Lake. This big thing happens. Jean pops up out the lake. Like, whoa, it's crazy. Like, she pops up out the lake. And he like, oh my God, is it really you? Da, 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 da. She come up to him, like kind of float over to him because she coming up off the water. And, you could tell it's her. Obviously, it is her, but you could tell something is wrong, like something not right. Something is off about her, right? So she come up to him, they get to kiss him, blah, blah. Of course, he's like, oh my God, I knew you was alive. He's feeling so emotional. She like, take your glasses off. Now, Cyclops got a beam shooting out his eye. Everything he look at, he'll destroy it. So she like, nah, take your glasses off. I can take it. Take your glasses off. And he like, okay. He end up trusting her. At first he hesitant, but he ends up trusting her. He take them glasses off. She do look at his eyes and basically controls his power. Like, it doesn't overtake her. But then this big explosion happens and it just cuts back to the school where everybody else is. And Professor X realizes, oh, Jean must definitely still be alive. And he's like, get to Scott, get to the lake. He's at Alkali Lake. Go get to him. So he sends Wolverine and Storm to go to the lake and check out what happened. They don't know this man is dead. They get there. It's just like these dust particles in the air. Scott's glasses, his things that, protect his eyes are like floating. Wolverine picks him up and he's like, what the heck is going on? They go over. Storm finds Jean laying down on the rocks, like passed out. So they get her. They take her back to Professor Xavier's house and, put her in the lab or whatever and make sure she's all right. So at this point, I believe Charles is like checking out her mind. He's like, oh, I knew. He didn't know this was going to happen, but he knew something was terribly wrong. He starts explaining to Wolverine, like, I put all these mental blocks in her mind because Jean is more powerful than she knows. And Wolverine kind of gets mad. He like, how could you do that? Like, you taking advantage of her mind, taking control away from her. And Professor X is like, brother, you don't understand. You don't know the power that this girl got. You think I'm powerful? Like, she's me telekinetic powers times 10, times infinity. She will kill any and everybody. She don't even know how to control that. You don't know what the power of her mind can do. And Wolverine is like, I don't care nothing about that. You basically taking her control away, and I don't like that. So Charles is like, you know what? Actually, I don't have to hear that from you. And he continues to doing whatever the heck he's doing to Jean's mind, and then ends up walking away or whatever. However, somehow we end up with Wolverine and Jean being alone. And then in this moment, she wakes up, and again, you can tell something is definitely off about her. Like, she's real different. So much so that even though her and Wolverine, like I mentioned before, kind of got a thing going on between them, canonically they do, but in the movies, they never really tried anything with one another. Like, they always like exercise a level of discipline or self-control about it, because she clearly is married to Cyclops. Well, in this moment, all of that is out the window. She is like going crazy, like saying, take me now. Take me now, Wolverine. Take me now. That's what she's saying. And he just like, as much as I love this, nah, because Jean wouldn't be doing this. Jean, I know, would be like, nah, I ain't going for that. What about Scott? So she mentioned Scott, and something in her get triggered. The other side of her get triggered. And he like, what happened to Scott? You killed Scott. And that's like, it was like a brain, like a thing switched in her brain, right? So it's obvious that there are two sides of her existing in her one body, which Professor X, I forgot to mention, did kind of explain, like he called it a phoenix. And so this is why we see later on in the other film, Dark Phoenix, because that's the like evil side of her is the Dark Phoenix. And Jean is like the good side, the more controlled, the more reserved, or trying to be in control side. So both of these personalities are inside of her, kind of like fighting for control. You know how I guess when they say people have the personality disorder, like one can only be at the front, like one at a time. So they're kind of going back and forth, fighting for control over who is showing up in that moment. So they get tussling a little bit in the middle of her, Wolverine and Jean tussling. her Jean self is like, please just kill me. And he like, I ain't killing you. And then the Phoenix, destroys everything and just runs off from there or whatever, and gets the heck on. So she leave. Charles and them follow her to her childhood home. That's where she runs off to. And in her childhood home, they show up. But when they show up, Magneto also show up because he can also sense Jean's power. By now, he got these other, he keep a gang of mutants around him. One of them is also able to sense mutants in their powers and how strong they are. So he got somebody on the inside too, essentially. They all meet up there, and Charles and Magneto are basically like, all right, we're going to go in this house to talk to our girl, Jean. They get in the house. Jean is obviously not Jean. It's obviously she's in her Phoenix form because she's sitting there looking crazy. Like her eyes get real black and stuff when she's in this form. Charles trying to talk to her and say, everything going to be all right. Jean, if you're in there, essentially, you can control this. You don't have to let it consume you. It's not what you think. Everything's going to be okay. Just come back to the house with me. Magneto is talking to the Phoenix side, and he just like, Charles always trying to control you. He never knew how to release your powers and teach you how to use your powers for real. He just want to suppress your mutant abilities. Like that's their whole, I'll say angst again between one another, Charles and Magneto type thing. So of course the Phoenix form ain't trying to hear none of that. She's like, yeah, you are always trying to control me. And in the midst of her realizing all that and kind of exercising her power, of course, Wolverine and Storm get to tussling with Magneto's people. But Jean, just how she disintegrated Scott, she disintegrated Professor X in this moment. This man, poof, turned into dust. And even witnessing that, Magneto was like, whoa, WTF. What have I unlocked? But also, yeah, come with me. So even he's just blown away by the level and extent of her power. In that moment, also Wolverine witnesses Professor Xavier's death. So it just gets real dark and emotional from there. Because now it's like Professor X is dead. They got to go back to the mansion and figure whether we gonna close this school or not, or like we don't know what's gonna happen from here. They have the funeral and it gets dark. So once they see kind of what's happening with the news, with the cure and everything, they kind of decide. And then I guess, they end up deciding, you know what, actually, we're not going to close the school. We're going to keep teaching the kids and be in a safe place for mutants to exist. What also kind of prompts that is the guy who was pushing for mutants to get the cure. He had a son who also was a mutant, and he's been trying to cure him all his life. So the son ends up showing up at the school, and they're like, okay, we're going to keep the school open because that's exactly what Xavier would want us to do. It's supposed to be a safe haven for mutants to come and just to be free and exist safely and freely and learn. So, I kind of have to tell you now how they got the cure for the mutant gene. This pharmaceutical company, I guess they kind of have been partnered with the government, but they have access to another mutant kid who, this mutant kid's ability is that when other mutants stand near him, they don't have, like, their mutant gene isn't activated, like they don't have their powers. So they can't use their powers against him or to help him or to do anything. When you stand near him as a mutant, you're just like a regular human. So they were experimenting on him and keeping him at Alcatraz and developed the serum there. So now Magneto is like, I got to get to Alcatraz to get rid of this kid. We're going to take that kid and just end that. Get that up out of here because we don't need nothing that's going to put it in to our mutant abilities. So everybody's like, okay, we know Magneto trying to go to Alcatraz. We all going to get to Alcatraz. Everybody gets to Alcatraz. They all fighting, duking it out or whatever. Magneto is showing all the people that he raised up because now he has a huge following. He calls his people the Brotherhood. A huge following of mutants with him. And then the X-Men show up and kind of fight. Like they're in between the government trying to fight them and like the mutants and the government going at one another. They kind of get between them. I should also mention too that the government's like, we know Magneto's power and what he can do. We're not gonna let him try to beat us with our own guns. So all the guns and weapons that they had, they exchanged them for cure weapons. So they basically shooting cures at the mutants, and and Magneto and them trying to, avoid getting shot by the cures or whatever. But they do end up, he like, we let the pawns go first and let some of them get shot up by the cure just to see what happened. And he's like, see, this is what I'm trying to tell y'all. That's what they trying to do. They trying to force this cure on us. And that's when like the X-Men kind of come and stand between them and say, nah, this ain't happening. This ain't going down. So they do end up saving the boy in the midst of everybody fighting in the X-Men trying to like take down Magneto and the Brotherhood. They end up tricking Magneto and shooting him with the cure. So now he has no more mutant powers, and he kind of like is trying to escape and get away as well. While all of that is happening, Jean is blowing up the whole place. Like, she's going crazy after she's seeing all this stuff happen and people getting shot with the cure shots and then Magneto getting shot with the cure shot. Like, I would rather say not Jean, but the Dark Phoenix. She's going crazy and like destroying and starting this disintegrating nonsense all over again. So everybody's now trying to escape, human and mutant alike. While she's doing all that, Wolverine is low-key the only one who can go up and approach her, because again, even though she's like disintegrated him, he has self-healing power. So every time like he's trying to move forward and like the disintegrating thing is happening to him, his body is just healing instantly. And when he gets to her, you can tell again that Jean and the Phoenix, they're going kind of back and forth about who is in control. And Jean ends up getting a few words out and saying like, just please, just kill me, just do it. Because I can't do it. I can't control it. So you're going to have to take me out. And Wolverine's like, I can't take you out. And it's kind of like, if you love me, you will take me out. Just please, just take me out. And so, yeah, Wolverine ends up, chim, he takes her out. And it's so sad and emotional. He takes her out and just like, starts screaming. I don't mean to make it like, but he has to do what he has to do in that moment. And yeah, it ends with them having, I guess, like a funeral or showing that Professor X, Jean, and Cyclops' tombstones are now buried at the house, and the school and everything is going to continue on. Of course, we know Magneto gets away, but we get a little hope with him. Even though he was shot up with the cure, he see him at the end at a park playing chess or whatever, and the chess pieces are metal, and he kind of puts his hand up to move one of the chess pieces and it wobbles a little bit. So is he gonna get his powers back? We don't know. I'll also say, even though that's the end of the movie, there are end credits in Marvel films. This is an end credit, which I didn't even know the X-Men movies had end credits, but this one does. And its end credit was Professor X laying up in a hospital and waking up, but he has all this stuff all over him. So I really didn't get to see his face, but we knew it was Professor X, and some nurse was attending to him. And so, yeah, that's how that movie ends. It kind of ends on a cliffhanger. So ultimately, Jean Grey dies. Magneto might get his powers back. The X-Men will prevail. They keep going on, and Professor X might be alive. I don't know. But yeah, that's the gist of the movie. Those were the 3 movies that I watched this week for our Doomsday Countdown. I might have left a few things out, but those are really the main plot points, everything you need to know about the origins of the X-Men, who they are, what they stand for, what they do. That's all I got. If you enjoyed this, please, subscribe, share this, comment, do all the things, engage with the content, because I'm going to keep posting every week, and we're going to continue on with our reviews and our Doomsday Countdown. Trailers might come back next week or in 2 weeks. We'll see. I got to figure that out. And yeah, I got some really great stuff planned for this series and this channel. So stay tuned. I hope you guys enjoyed. I will see you next week. Bye.